Good evening, everyone. My name is Dimitri Reyes, and I'm the Marketing Communications Director at CavanKerry Press. And it is my pleasure and honor to introduce Danny Schott, who has published his new book, baby, The Jersey Slide. It's available right now from CavanKerry Press. You can get it. If you don't already have it with you, you should order it. It has wonderful and beautiful French flaps. It has his dashing face on the back, which you will also see very soon. Also has these beautiful covers. It's a great gift now that we're getting into the Christmas season, the buying season. So you might want to check that book out. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to our reading. I am actually going to start with an opening statement and a land acknowledgement. But before I do that, this is to let you know, for those who are tuning in on Facebook and on Zoom, thank you for joining us. In the chat, we are going to have a Q&A at the end of our reading this evening. So if you have any questions, please activate the chat and put your questions in the chat, because that will go into the conversation we're having after the reading's done. And we have Chavisa Woods with us. We have Danny Schott. It's going to be such a lovely reading. And also, you're going to hear some beautiful stuff tonight. When you do, show your support by putting hearts with your reactions on Facebook or on Zoom. Also, leave a comment on Facebook or on Zoom, because I send these comments back to the authors after the fact. We're just concentrating on the reading and supporting folks. So, my name is Dimitri Reyes. I'm the Marketing and Communications Director here. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to another CavanKerry series of our virtual readings that celebrate our authors and friends of the press. Tonight, we join arts organizations across the country in celebrating Native American Heritage Month, which honors the voices, stories, and traditions of Indigenous communities across the United States. At CavanKerry Press, we recognize the power of literature to preserve culture, confront inequities, and inspire connection, especially in this moment where Indigenous groups remain isolated, redlined, under-assisted, and wrongfully accosted and detained by anti-immigration ICE enforcement. It is essential to uplift and support the many nations of Indigenous creatives whose work continue to enrich our literary landscape and affirm our shared humanity. Additionally, we want to take a moment to acknowledge that the land we occupy in Bergen County, New Jersey, belongs to the Munsee Lenape people. We honor their history. We cannot function in our work as arts activists, nor offer a safe space for all writers without understanding the struggle for Indigenous rights. We have added to the chat a map of native lands for you to identify which land you occupy, and also a few links with resources so you can learn more and or offer your support. So this is how tonight is going to work, and thank you for listening. We will start out with Chavisa Woods, and she will grace us with her awesome presence and her awesome work. And then afterwards, we will go to Danny Schott and celebrate the Jersey Slide. He's going to slide on screen with us, and he's going to deliver a reading. And then afterwards, we will have a conversation. So to begin, Shirley Jackson Award winner Chavisa Woods is the author of 4 books, including Things to Do When You're Goth in the Country. Her work has received praise from the New York Times, the LA Times, Publishers Weekly, and has appeared in Tin House, Lit Hub, Electric Lit, the Brooklyn Rail, and others. She's appeared as a featured author on The Young Turks, NPR's 1A, and at the Whitney Museum of American Art, the Mid-Manhattan Public Library at 42nd, and other venues. The Rumpus called her a literary exorcist, calling out certain entities that possess America. Be Enchanted by Chavisa Woods.
Thank you for that amazing introduction. I'm just so happy to be here celebrating Danny Schott's book. He's a dear friend, and I've just watched his writing grow and grow over the last, I think I've known him for more than 20 years now. And I'm so proud of him. So this is to the New Jersey Slide. I'm going to be reading a few poems about rural poverty, and I think that's a big theme right now. It's something I've been writing about my entire life, and suddenly everyone's become a lot more interested in it, and I think it's a theme that we're all dealing with in this country. Generational poverty. So here we go. I'm going to start with this poem titled, and I think this was published in the Evergreen Review years ago. It's the first time it was published and the last time it was published. This is Remembering What It Was Like to Be 17. I call you mother, and you are things like memories that have nothing to do with that word. Like the first time I snorted cocaine through a rolled up 20. The first time I snorted cocaine through anything or took it anyway, actually. But maybe that does have something to do with that word. That was sort of a motherly moment for you. You watched me in silence, allowing it, letting your two lines sink in. And there was care in your watching, and there was assurance in your watching. You watched me with a watching that was like you were watching me get married. I was 17 and my hands were shaking, and that old boy pushed the mirror at me excitedly as you watched me beside me. And there was sadness in your watching. And you seemed to be lovingly laughing at me with your eyes for being scared. You were laughing at me for being scared, like I imagined other mothers laugh at their daughter's fear, with sadness in their eyes, at weddings. My hands were shaking when I took the bill. I bent to the mirror while you watched me beside me. I was standing on the other side of myself, whispering something in a language I could not speak. And those words had everything in them that had anything to do with the word mother and my name. Those words had a hammer and trees and your blood caked around a hole in the wall, my face reflecting in a creek and fires and piss and beer cans, and our trash eating away the skin of the earth. And I remembered that I had a minor hereditary heart defect from my father's side of the family. This didn't seem like an appropriate moment to bring it up. So I put my nose to the bill, and the line was so long and thick. I wondered if I would live through this. But you had done twice that much, and you looked as fine as you ever did, and you had lived through so much more. And I was your daughter, so I thought, I can live through this too. I sucked it up, and the room shook, but my shaking stopped. And then your hand was on my back, and you looked at me like maybe you had just really recognized me as the word daughter for the first time. And I realized that it was you I had just married. And I was filled with the feeling that you were my mother, so I could live through anything and would. Thanks so much. Oh, I see people snapping. Thank you for listening. Um, Yeah, I write a lot about rural poverty. My book of short fiction, Things to Do When You're Goth in the Country, is all about Trump country. And I've always found poems to be much more difficult and more elusive than prose, but I'm reading poetry today and I appreciate you guys listening. This is called Food Bank. We're moving forward in time now to 2019, and it's the second part of a three-part series. Um, so now I'm going to read Food Bank, which I think is also on everyone's mind. In my town, my high school teacher just contacted me a couple days ago, and many of the people who voted for Trump now are out of food stamps. And like most of my mother's side of the family relies on food stamps to eat. And the food pantries in the county where I grew up in Marion County are empty right now, and they're trying to restock them. So they're trying to raise money to restock all the food banks. And this poem is called Food Bank, which I wrote a few years ago. I drove my mother to the food bank. The food bank was closed for lunch. The needy were all smoking in a line that was slowly coming apart. My mother asked one of them for a cigarette. Then she stood near the breaking line and smoked outside the food bank in the hot sun on the yellow grass, which was dying around a patch of gravelly rocks. She noticed a red crack pipe someone had dropped thoughtlessly. She picked it up and inspected it to see if it still worked, but it was broken. She cursed the broken crack pipe and tossed it back into the gravel pile, then remembered my presence and for my benefit and no one else's. She lied and said, "Oh, I thought that was a..." But she didn't have the energy to finish her lie. She just stood there, finishing her cigarette with the rest of them in the broken line. All right. Thank you. And I will read one more, and this was published in one of the issues of A Gathering of the Tribes magazine. Always have to get a shout out to A Gathering of the Tribes, and cheers to the memory of Steve Cannon, who published my first book, who introduced me to almost everyone, all the poets I knew in New York, and was a good friend of mine and of Danny's. So here's to Steve. All right, this is Green Zircon. This is the last poem I'm going to read before I give over the floor to the man of the hour. Poverty's fertile plant roots at the base of the trimmed pond willow, whose weep is not permitted to touch ground now, because the nearby trailer park children liked to hide there and shout obscenities at the moment golfers swung pricey sticks against dented orbs. Over the years since I last saw you, cousin, you have turned 16, and your expression has fallen lower than the shadowed sand trap, and your eyes seem to be digging themselves deeper instead of out. Each day, our family places 2 pills before you to trick your mind into accepting the world you've been given. You willingly swallow the means of your own constraint. I find it stunning how your throat guides its own oppression, bobbing past Adam's apple and the tiny ticking noise your tongue makes against ice water, as our stern and beloved grandmother watches, barely nodding, as your sunken eyes meet mine in the silent beg of a prisoner knowing someone else in the room knows they are innocent. Innocence's tears wet the blades as we walk in medicated silence at midnight over the grounds of the empty golf course. You lead me to the castrated, weeping pond willow and silently snatch up a toad with the quick snatch of a boy, familiar with nature's stealth. I flinch, and you assure me you're done killing things that are not yourself, at least for now. You apologize for dead rabbits, birds, thousands of dismembered insects, emerald mush like. This toad's brilliant skin flashing under the assault of your light. Its glassy eyes moving in ripples, plasmic spheres, deciphering nothing of our humanity. It seems to be pointing to something very near us that I will never perceive. You hold the toad like a pistol pointing to apologies for dead rabbits, and I realize you are still young enough to be honest. You apologize for all the animals you tortured to torture me, but I recall the molesting of the dog and your pregnant mother pushed down the stairs most vividly. I do not mention or seek recourse for these childhood atrocities, but I wish to apologize to you, and no forgiveness will never be found, not even possibly snatched from the imperceptible shadows. We are unforgivably American. Violence is seeping from you, wetting your stiffened skin and rippling your eyes to unconscionable revenge, deciphering everything of our humanity. I touch its gooey head before it is released into the water, sending a small splash, upsetting the surface, never reaching the water's edge, where poverty's fertile plant roots at the base of the trimmed pond willow, whose weep is not permitted. Thank you so much.
Oh my goodness. Chavisa, thank you so much. That was powerful. I appreciate you. I'll zoom you out in a moment, and then I'll zoom you back. So many questions. Thank you so much for your reading. Very much appreciated. Oh, that's just the beginning, everyone. Thank you so much. Chavisa, do go back and look at all the comments. People are leaving some things, so many emotions. Thank you. So everyone, that was Chavisa Woods. I'm going to actually put a link of 100 times by Chavisa Woods so you can get a bit of a sense of what they're working with in terms of their work also. Please feel free to support her as well. So The Jersey Slide. Happy birthday! It's here. And we're going to be hearing from Danny Schott in just one moment. But first, let me read Danny Schott's bio. So, Danny Schott's works was published in 2018 by CavanKerry Press. Recent endeavors include being an associate editor of A Gathering of the Tribes magazine 2020 to 2023 and poetry editor of Red Fez 2018 to 2021. You can hear him talk about his family on the recent podcast LBI Presents Ghosts of Your Family Past from the Leo Baeck Institute. He was featured on the PBS television show State of the Arts on the occasion of his book party for Works. Danny is a New Generation Beat Poet Laureate 2024 to Lifetime. That is right, it's 2024 to Lifetime, the New Generation Beat Poet Laureate. Danny Schott was the longtime publisher and editor of the arts and literary magazine Longshot, which he founded along with Elliot Katz in 1982 in New Brunswick, New Jersey. More information can be found on his website, DannySchott.com. Everyone, here is the impeccable Danny Schott.
Why, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I thank you for being here. I'm really happy with this book, which was years in the making. Anyway, let me start with a haiku. If they don't like when we call them fascists, maybe they shouldn't do fascist shit. Okay, I just needed to get that out of the way. I'm going to read the title poem, The Jersey Slide. And generally, I don't like talking about my poems because I feel the poems should speak for themselves. But I am going to tell you, because people have questions, where did the title come from, The Jersey Slide? Jersey Slide is a Jersey thing, but I think other people understand it too. For example, you're driving down the turnpike, going down the shore, going somewhere south, and you're doing, you're driving, you're doing your 75 miles an hour in the center lane, keeping up with traffic, doing fine. And then some asshole cuts across 3 lanes of traffic, cutting everyone off to get to the exit or just to get to the right lane. That's what the Jersey Slide is, okay? It's that maneuver that Jerseyans understand quite well. This poem is actually a suite of poems. It's a bunch of different poems that sort of go together. Its beginning genesis came from a workshop I took with Alicia Ostreicher. And I should mention, Alicia was my teacher at Rutgers in the 70s. And then a few years ago, I took a workshop with her for teachers. And so she had us write these quick poems. And it was like, okay, write a poem, blah, 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 1 minute. And all of us were like, what? 1 minute. And the other part of this comes from something that my friend Eva HD and Chavisa said. We were talking about Charles Simic poems. We were just texting each other. Those short little 5-line poems. Can you do that? I don't know. So between Alicia and Eva and Chavisa, this Jersey Slide came to be. And it's got all different sections. So you're going to hear titles mixed in with the poems. Part 1, Birds of Bayonne. Follow the path in Bayonne. Snowy egrets fish for whatever they can dredge up, cawing to the turnpike overpass. Cars crawl, honk, clamor, Jersey Slide, crisscross, cook the asphalt skyway. Colossus. We gaze at your backside. What a glorious ass it is, mother of exiles. We're the ones who heed your call, striving across the river, the racing heart of Manhattan, beacon of liberty and wealth, and perhaps the making it, whatever that means, whatever that meant. Next one. You called me a replacement child, and I had to laugh because I never thought of it that way. One life cannot replace another, as Ronnie James Dio couldn't replace Ozzy, or Trump can't replace Obama. If anyone's a replacement child, it's Carol, not me. Age. A middle-aged woman wearing a Dumont hoodie walks toward me by the river. Hey, I shout, I'm from Dumont. She looks at me, perhaps frightened, her Dumbledore sweatshirt glittering in the fog. This one's a haiku. Overheard by the urinals. And I told him twice, never bring a dog around an open casket. Revelation. Unfortunately, my wife came to the conclusion that I was old before I did, and now anything I do proves it so. Two Jews in a small town on Christmas Day. We meet at 7-Eleven, smoke some weed, share a Slurpee, don't know what to do. Sheila says Grateful Dead. You say Sabbath. She walks alone in the snow. You stand frozen. Winefest, Jersey City. All pretense of tasting wine forgotten as we move from line to line, plastic cups in hand. The murky field lit by Klieg lights casting improbable shadows on the soggy soil. Caroline and I take selfie after selfie, the illusion of dangling shadow penises, which we find uproarious and send to friends and our kids who are not amused. After the Deluge, Part 21. We join the neighbors in the street at 1 a.m., glasses of whiskey in hand, soaking wet, sore from bailing the torrents rushing into our basement. These once-in-a-lifetime weather events have become a way of life around here. We clink our glasses in the rain to a better tomorrow. A better tomorrow? That's the Jersey Slide. Okay, this one, many of the poems in the book are true stories. This one's another one. It's called Kids. He is my favorite photographer. I've been taking pictures of skateboarders, he said. They're fantastic. We made arrangements for me to come to his loft in Tribeca and pick out some photos. When I get to his door, a young voice told me he was across the street at the Baby Doll Lounge. He was sitting at the bar, staring straight up a stripper's crotch. I tapped him on the shoulder. I'm here for some photos. He was confused. Here? I don't think they want us to take photos. No, I said, of skateboarders for my magazine. Oh, he said, of course. Have a seat. What are you drinking? Beer, I replied. You're a poet, right? Poets drink whiskey. I'm buying. 5 or 6 drinks later, his easy banter with the working girls was getting more worrying with each completed drink. My friend here is a poet. Poets eat pussy. What have you got for him? A bouncer who had been standing by the door grabbed him in a bear hug and deposited him on the sidewalk outside. I wanted to protest, but meekly followed. We walked across the street to his loft. Inside was a group of 8 or 9 teenagers lounging around. Skateboards were parked near the door. 4 or 5 of them, mostly girls, crumpled in a heap on a futon by the wall. 4 others were playing darts on the other side of the room. Instead of hitting the target, the object of the game was to catch the dart before it hit the board. The famous photographer walked to the counter and opened a fresh bottle of whiskey, pouring full glasses for me and him before retiring to a chair in front of the coffee table. A few packets of photos lay on the table. The teens were in various states of injury. One kid had a dart stuck in his arm, others bleeding from various wounds. The famous photographer looked over the carnage. Kids, what are you going to do? And then he passed out. I played Florence Nightingale, finding rubbing alcohol, cotton balls, and Band-Aids in the medicine cabinet. The teens were compliant, friendly, and not the least bit curious about what was going on. After maybe half an hour, the famous photographer opened his eyes. Kids, aren't they fantastic? I should make a movie. Dispossession. The family never speaks of Lena, but here she is, my aunt from my father's side, in the snack aisle at Acme that used to be AMP, that used to be Food Town, that used to be Pathmark, that used to be ShopRite, down the block from us in Hoboken, New Jersey. Lena stands in the snack section, weighing a bag of pretzels versus a bag of Doritos. What foodstuffs in this new land of wonder? I follow her to the canned goods, Progresso soups, Chunky soups, Campbell's soups, Well Yes soups, the flavors, the variety, all unkosher, all available, all on sale. Buy 3, get 5 free. What kind of sense does that make? Jesus stands in front of the liquor section, silent, newly dead. I saw his body at Our Lady of Saints, one of the few people I met who looked better in the coffin than he did on the streets. Jesus' name is Bobby. He was a homeless man who lived between 6th and 7th Street on the Avenue, the stretch between the bagel shop and Dunkin' Donuts, his domain. He's holding a Bud Tallboy in a brown paper bag. Thanks, he says, the only word he ever says besides smoke when he sees me walking down the street. I nod to him in my usual way and follow Lena to the meat section, far from the pork chops, to the cuts of beef. So many choices. What's a lonely apparition to do? She surveys the possibilities, sometimes picks up a package for inspection, moving her lips as she reads the label. Lena was killed at Auschwitz, but we don't talk about that. Her father, my grandfather, drove her out of the house with a raised garden hoe after her pregnancy became apparent. She moved across Frankfurt with her boyfriend, the army sergeant, who disappeared somewhere along the line. Her blonde-haired children, Wanda and Dennis, murdered at Theresienstadt. Family history we don't talk about. I don't talk about. I'm the only one left. Today, Lena is shopping at Acme, and Jesus is eyeing her as she touches the plums. So delicious, so out of season on this gray autumn day. He follows her as she glides down the produce aisle, past the scales and cabbages and spinach and lettuce and Brussels sprouts, until she gets to the front of the store and sees the pumpkins. What are these orange monstrosities? Only in America. If only America. Jesus takes her by the hand, past the sad cashiers into the parking lot, where the shopping carts are scattered willy-nilly like the souls of her brothers and sisters. They walk to the supermarket grounds and disappear into what's left of this day, what's left of this world. You know, it's funny, I got my phone next to me here and I keep seeing like messages and I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? Something's wrong. And message after message is Democrats asking me for money. That's what keeps coming up. It seems to be 3/4 of the texts I get. Anyway, along those lines, this poem is not in the book. It's a fairly new poem, a month or 6 weeks old. It speaks for itself. It's called Catching Your Breath in a Burning House. My politics can be summed up in 2 words, anti-fascist, or Antifa if you insist on one. We're not supposed to talk politics at the high school reunion. Fine, we'll skip the reunion. We'll meet where we can laugh in another town, perhaps another town. We're not permitted to call them fascists anymore, but their boots echo loud, shiny and stomping through the halls of media giants, corridors of white shoe law firms, centers for disease control, through classrooms and dormitories, into your child's consciousness. You ask, what does courage look like? It's not a cape or a championship belt. It's definitely not a gun. Maybe a weary janitor refusing to mop up blood that wasn't an accident. It could be a talk show host unwilling to be silenced. Sometimes it's a librarian who leaves banned books where kids can find them. We've seen this movie before in Berlin, Moscow, Imperial Japan, Charlottesville, Kabul, Jerusalem. Fascism and violence march lockstep, hand in hand. Call it genocide if you dare. The subways still run, gas is cheap, the Marvel universe remains intact. Tech stocks soar to Olympian heights, Amazon Prime delivers next day, Planet Fitness always a deal, supermarket shelves remain full with inflated coffee, bread, and meat. No one is innocent who chooses not to see. Teachers try to teach history or science in whispered syllables like contraband jazz. Don't wait for the uniforms to change. They already have. Now they wear masks and flags on their lapels and carry guns with the safety off in fear for their lives. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's carrying that fear into the courthouse, the classroom, the library, the voting booth, and into the streets. Remember, bullies are cowards at heart. You are not insignificant. Fascists only can win when you believe you are small. When they say unity, ask under whose rule. When they chant freedom, count the cages holding brown workers and children. Then, when you feel lost, stand up anyway. Even if you tremble, even if your voice shakes, take a deep breath, make yourself breathe again, and again, and again. Don't ever stop caring or breathing in this fucking burning house. Okay, let's see. One more, is that good?
One or two's good, Danny.
Okay, I'll do one. This is the last poem in the book. It's called Thanks, and I thank you for being here and listening to me. Jack Weiler once said I was lost. He wrote it in a poem. I don't think I'm lost. Lately, everyone is so confident. Confident they are right, confident they know the way, confident they'll get laid, so sure of how to punish guilty people on TV. Often, I have nothing in my head. I'll be walking down the street thinking, I should be thinking about something, but I'm not. Sometimes I think about where I park my car, or if I need a haircut, or why old people don't like loud music when they're a little deaf, or how I should call my sister even though she's dead, or how the multiplicity of the universe already exists in the form of 8 billion living words, each a universe unto itself. But then I look up at the tree, its orange autumnal splendor on the side of Our Lady of Grace, beneath the bluest burst of sky Hoboken has to offer, and I think, this is life, my life, one of billions. Not too bad at all. Thank you for this gift. Thank you.
Yes, Danny. Oh, I love that you ended with that one. Oh man, it's here, buddy. The book's here. Ah, amazing, amazing, amazing. Thank you so much for that reading. Chavisa, I'm going to invite you back on now too. Everyone's quoting from what you've been saying. There's been laughs, there's been surprise faces, just a bunch of great stuff. So, folks, at this point in time, it is now time for us to have our conversation. If there's anything that you'd feel like asking, big or small, put that in the chat and we'll add that to the queue, and I'll be sure to ask Danny and Chavisa. So thanks, y'all. Thank you for being here. Um, there's just there was a lot. There was a lot in both, and what I was thinking was just how, and this is funny because we're all existing in this three-dimensional reality right now, but how real the work feels in a kind of time where social media and TV and politics and all this stuff is so curated for us to look at. And then we're kind of taking a cross section of what we see and kind of building our own realities around that. So, Chavisa, I'm thinking specifically about when you were talking about the food bank. And then Danny, specifically the turnover of this one supermarket where you basically listed every supermarket that's on the East Coast in New Jersey being at this one spot. So, for the two of you, what do you learn from writing about these small moments that, for those who don't write, wouldn't even consider giving a second thought? So, writing about the food bank experience or writing about the turnover in the middle of a supermarket, like those details. Um, what is the importance of writing these small moments for people who will read it?
Lisa, I'm going to let you answer first.
Sure. It reminds me of I wrote a whole essay about like animal abuse
Mm,
and generational poverty tied to like Tiger King and like Southern Illinois.
okay.
And one of the incidents I wrote about was like just being like a queer, like vegetarian as a small child, and like everyone knew there was something like different about me in school, and the
Mm,
boys like usually the boys didn't really beat up the girls, they'd kind of beat up each other and the girls would beat up the girls, but the boys would target me, and they like
mm,
one time I think I was like 12 years old. They knew it would upset me. They just held me down and like a bunch of boys held me down and, like, killed a bunch of bugs, like, on my
wow.
face, like, pulled a bunch of these beautiful, like, big grasshoppers that I really liked, and they, like, smashed them on my face and, like, tore them apart in front of me, and I wrote in detail about this moment, and I just remember feeling like people from my small town watching me being like, "Some guys killed, like, bugs in front of you and, like, held you down." Like, that's not that big of a deal. It was probably, like, 60 seconds out of my whole life.
Mhm,
And I always and I remember it, like, always being, like, kind of like, stuff like that happening to me,
mm,
always being kind of, like, trivialized, like, "Oh, get over it, it's childhood bullying," or whatever, but
mhm,
I don't know, I really inspected it a lot, and I think that's the job of the writer, is to kind of think about things more than other people want you to. Like,
mm,
especially if people don't want you to think about something or telling like, always listen to people what people tell you you can't write about or tell you is boring or shouldn't write about, like, maybe that's the
yeah,
thing you need to be writing about the most because 'cause they're trying not to look at it.
yeah, that's a and that sucks, Javisa. I hate that that happened to you.
Yeah,
That's
sucks.
It
like I
does.
spend
Like,
and that's also the guilt. There's so many writers on this call right now, but there's such a vivid like imagination that we have, and it's like I spend time in the garden and I know what these grasshoppers look like, and it's like just thinking
right.
about that happen in your face.
Yeah,
That's
because they knew I
so
liked them.
gruesome.
I was, like, picking them up and putting them down because I was a kid, yeah.
Ah,
But it's just
yeah.
that, it's just, like, people will tell you, like, "Why are you making such a big deal out of things?" And writers like, "'Cause if you look at something, if you expand it, maybe it is a
Mhm.
big."
Yeah, thank you for that.
My answer is going to be much more academic than Chavisa. Um, I grew up in New Jersey. I was born in the Bronx, but I spent most of my life in New Jersey. I live in Hoboken today. And New Jersey, of course, in terms of poetry, is the home of William Carlos Williams,
Mhm,
Allen Ginsberg, Amiri Baraka, and in general, Patti Smith. We have a
mm,
chip on our shoulder. We're not New
mhm,
York, you know,
mhm,
and place is very important to us. And along with place comes time often. And I studied in college with Miguel Algarin at
mhm,
Rutgers. And he always said, write about place, you know,
mm,
where you come from, write about place. And you get those moments where when you write about the place you come from, and they become moments, that's the time aspect of it.
mhm.
So if you're from somewhere like New Jersey, where like I said, we already have a chip in on our shoulder, we wind up writing about the place we came from, and
Mhm.
those moments that you talk about come from there, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's the cool thing about the writing process too. It's like you're not really going to know what you set out to write until you start writing. Like you could have an idea for it, right? But then all of these different things start splintering off from that. And when we think about place, it's so textured, so you never really know what's going to start manifesting until you start exploring. That's great, Danny. Thank you.
I'm
Um,
from Dumont.
No,
I'm
you're
from Dumont.
That was like really cracking me up. I wish you could have heard me laughing. That was
not.
perfect. Just
Oh,
I
that's
gotta
so
say, I just
funny.
had my 50th high school reunion a few weeks
Woo!
ago,
yeah.
and
Congratulations.
it was like, oh my God, when I was 15 years old, my number one ambition in life was to get the hell out of Dumont.
Oh, no.
And over the years, I've romanticized it in my stories and stuff. And then the reality of getting together for a 50-year reunion, I was like, oh my God, I forgot, what this is. I love Dumont, but oh my God.
It's Dumont.
Yeah. That actually feeds into the next question really good about place. So this question is coming from future CavanKerry Press author and your pressmate, Danny Schott, author Justin Hunt. And Justin says, both of you have a powerful sense of place. The poems you shared tonight are grounded because of that. Has place always fueled your work? Or did it come to you later, or as Danny you mentioned in a class with Algarin?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
And I'd like to say it always was part of it, but as I evolved as a writer, it became more important. As a younger writer, I was often writing about generalities and the human condition as I saw it, as
Mm,
I saw it as a 20-year-old. And it was sort of an evolution that I started to realize what's interesting about me is not how I see the world, but where I'm from in a way. And so it came to me with time. I don't know, writing about friends, family, the place I come from. I don't know how to answer that. Chavisa,
mhm,
what do you think? You sort of always wrote about place, right?
Yeah, I think I was like born in 82 in what is now everyone calls like Trump country, but I was born into generational poverty, in rural poverty. And I,
mm,
I felt like there's this sickness in this part of this country that if we didn't pay attention to it, it was going to infect everything. And
mm,
I started writing about it when I was like 15, and my first book came out about it in like the early 2000s from Steve Cannon published Love Does Not Make Me Gentle or Kind, and I was just really trying to sound the alarm bell with my writing.
mhm,
And for many years, people were like, "Oh, this is like a really niche, like novel, like place, but it really doesn't matter." Like New Yorkers would really act like, "Well, that they're somewhere else. That's in a bubble." And now with like JD Vance and Trump, everyone's like, "Oh shit, like there's something here that's festering and growing." So for
mhm,
me, I come from that place. I was a young Christian Republican and who was gay, like trying to
mhm,
hide that. So it's just like weird. Yeah, so that was place was always really important to me. I was writing about this place because I wanted the like liberals who seem to have power like to pay attention to this place, which they failed to do. And now we
mhm,
are in the situation we are in.
mhm. That's I love the congruency in both of these conversations here of talking about place because I also just think of how when you're in any beginner writer's class, if we could think that far back for all of us here, they always say like write what you know, like that's what you're starting from. And I think what you can hold on to is the idea of place because place gives you a sense of identity.
Mhm.
But it's wild because as we continue to write, places change. Like if you leave and go back to that place, there are going to be things that stay the same, but just because of time, things do change in that. So it's really interesting to also see how we evolve within that. And a lot of folks will almost feel like, especially like back in the day before like, the intellectualism periods and stuff, they felt like these poets were like prophets, like they were able to tell the future. But we just had a finger on the button because we were writing about things as they were actually happening, right? Seeing what would manifest later on, which is really interesting in terms of storytelling. So, Danny, this one's for you here,
Wait,
and
can
this
I ask
one's
you a question first
yeah,
for a second? Sorry, I don't mean
yeah,
to.
no,
You're from a place, Newark, and you've moved to another
yeah,
place.
yeah.
Tell me about how the shift in places affects your writing. I'm just curious.
Oh my
Sorry.
gosh. Yeah, so actually I don't have the pad right here, but I am penning my next book now. And what I'm doing while I'm writing, sometimes I have to tell myself that, holy crap, I'm in a different place, writing about this place where I used to be, because I am also writing about space, and that's why I think we're in conversation about that right now. So in the back of this legal pad, I'm also just journaling of different spots where I am writing that was totally different to my consciousness of the poet I was before, right? So being a poet of place, I would write on the stoops of apartment buildings. I would write at bus stops, I would write at parks. And specifically, I would try to put myself in the places where I was writing before. But now I'm like 2.5 hours away from where I used to live, stuck between the Pines and Philadelphia, right? So, what am I to do as this person that grew up in an urbanized environment and trying to channel those things? I was talking to a student I was constructing, and how people do method acting. I also try to do method writing. So I try to set up my space as if the space was like where it was back in the day. I would try to play certain musics that are going back to that certain space, or I would just try to look at older pieces of writing for myself, which I was going to try to spit that back at you all, but I didn't know how to formalize the question. But writing in your 20s about space versus writing where you are now is totally different because of hindsight, right? And now I've also been writing enough that I'm kind of getting there to see almost like metacognitively how I used to consider space and where it is now. Um, but the funny thing about space is, and I don't know if you noticed, I stuttered when I started saying the funny thing about space is that it'll always change. But that's also a little bit of BS because you can go back and eerily some things stay the same, ghostly, right? You can still see the phantoms of the phantom
Mhm.
energies of that history that still exist there. So now, being in a place where there's less pigeons, but there are more nuthatches, I'm switching some animals out for others. I'm switching some sounds out for others, right? There's a lot more lawnmowers rather than bus mufflers that I'm hearing now. So that affects space and things such as that. So, it is affecting my writing in the way that I guess space does a funny thing to memory. I think when we think about memories, we think about space more than the actual memory or something that happened to us. We think about how the area looked around us. Um, and I'm answering this question really long-winded because I didn't expect to get a question. But now, Danny, thank you for spitting that back at me. But yeah, space. It's an interesting thing.
Dimitri, I'll add
Yeah.
this. Memory does a funny thing to memory. As you get older, you're a young man still. You'll see.
Oh yeah, yeah. And see that I guess that's the cool thing about writing too, right, y'all? Like just the fact that we're writing these things and then we turn back to them later. It's interesting how we could even almost track our own memories as they're going through 'em. So Danny, that does actually lead to this question. Similarly, kind of in the conversation of what I was talking about. So you're writing about realities, and memory is different to your own memory depending on when you're remembering it. So you mentioned that a lot of your stories were true, some of them not, but that's for us to decide and ponder, right? That's the fun part about poetry. But all of them are equally alive, as I mentioned, because there's a grittiness, but there's also like a humor and a hopefulness within this. So my question to you is, knowing you for a while, I'm interested in this answer. That humor and hopefulness within the grittiness, would you call that a silver lining in your work, or is that something else?
You know, I feel like Joe Pesci in Goodfellas. I don't think I'm funny at all, and
When you
people
turn the
sometimes
corner,
find humor in my lines, and I'm like, "What? You find me funny? Huh?"
am
You know,
I a clown?
I don't know. It's sort of the way I see the world. I do laugh a lot, I guess. I don't know. So is it a silver lining? It's just how I see the world, sort of, and I don't know. I don't think I'm that unique or anything. I don't know how to answer that. I don't find sometimes when I'm reading in front of a live audience and I say a line and everybody laughs, I think, God, are they all stoned? Like what's going on here? That wasn't funny. So I don't know. I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Because the other thing, I also notice your facial expressions. You're smiling your way through a lot of pieces. So, like on a subconscious level, I don't know, Danny.
I smile too much. I don't know if it's nerves. I've had students of mine say, you smile so much, you sort of scare me. I don't know. I mean, I've smiled enough in my life that I got all these wrinkles
Yeah.
here. I wish I didn't, I don't know.
I don't know. Smiling's a
It's,
beautiful thing, Danny. That's a compliment.
when I think
Yeah.
about, the lives my parents lived
Mm,
and what they went through and stuff, all I can do for my existence sort of is laugh through it because
mm,
whatever I'm going through isn't close to what they went through.
mm.
Yeah,
So
and so one of the poems, you're still talking around something, but you say you're the replacement child. A lot of people might not know what you mean by that. I mean, I do because I'm your friend.
Mhm,
right. Um, that actually, if for someone coming to the book, if you read the whole book, you sort of might understand that. Um, my par- my mom is a Holocaust survivor. She
mm,
lost her first child and her parents. My father lost his mother and a sister, and so I grew up, the closest thing to understanding my life without reading me is to read Mouse by Art Spiegelman.
mm,
It's the same thing. He was born into the world, but he had a brother who was born before him who was killed in the Holocaust. So my friend Eva
mhm,
always wants to call me a replacement child, and I
mm,
say, "No, I'm not that. I'm me."
mm,
I don't like to be called that. But that's where that line comes from, replacement child.
mm,
I mean,
mhm,
if I can say something to Dimitri's question, I think Danny is really funny, and I also as he's one of my best friends, and I know people who have actually been through hard shit have the darkest senses of humor. Like, we actually don't get that offended that easily, and
uh-huh,
we laugh at everything. Like, my partner works with a bunch of social workers. She's a psychologist, and when they get together and start drinking, they say the worst shit, but they're out there every day helping people who are in the hardest
yeah,
situations as well. And sometimes you have to laugh how gruesome things are, else you won't survive it, you know?
mhm,
It really it builds those muscles. Like,
yeah,
we do have a dark sense of humor. Let's
And
be honest.
that's us too, us teachers
mhm,
on Friday happy hour, after we worked a full week teaching 100 plus students. Yeah, that's what we say. We would never want anyone else to hear.
Not a
yeah.
podcast. Okay.
Yeah, that you know what? I think it's time. While we were in the green room all together before the reading got started, there was a conversation going on, and the laughter was infectious as it was now. And someone mentioned a story, and we didn't get a chance to talk about that story. So I think now is the time for it. So um, when we have these readings, I tend to highlight the fact of how important community is, right, for artists. So I'd love to know the story of how, when and where and how you two first met.
Okay. Well, we'll fill in the blanks between each other.
Uh-huh.
It was in Hoboken, New Jersey,
Uh-huh.
right? Chavisa, you were 21, you just came to New York City
From St. Louis the night before, yep. So I
night
met you the
before,
first day I was in
Wow.
New York
and
State.
we were part of an art exhibit of naked photos of poets, and it was at the art gallery. So when we say the first time we saw each other, was when we
We
read it,
saw pictures of each other naked before we met.
yeah, we might have seen each other naked, our pictures
Like,
before
'cause
we
there
met.
were all of these, like, black and white, like, artistic photos of, like, poets nude all over the gallery, and I had actually come in the night before, and the woman who was the photographer was like, "Get naked, kid," like, get and I was staying at her house, and she put me in this room and, like, had me get nude and, like, do all these things and took pictures of me and, like, printed them out for the gallery the next day. It was, like, the
Whoa.
last one to go up. And then there was this big poetry reading
Right, it was part of the
the
artist
gallery.
it was part of the artist studio tour in Hoboken, and the other thing is, at the time, I don't know, when was it? It was 2003 maybe? So,
That's 2003 when I
yeah,
moved to
my
America.
kids were, like, 14 and 11,
Mhm.
and they had an art supplement, and the cover of the art supplement was sort of a naked picture of me saying, "Man" in the thing. Man,
Because you were standing in, like, a
middle-aged
circular
man,
sort
I
of
think it said, something like that, and it
Wow.
was the cover of the whole thing, so my kids had to see that all over town.
oh my god, my Southern Baptist grandmother, like, 2 weeks after I moved to New York City was like, "Well, I saw online, I saw the pictures." She was like, "But I understand their art because 'cause they're black and white." are not pornography. It's like,
But
Wow,
anyway, it
what?
was at the reading for this art exhibit, and I saw Chavisa reading. We both read. I think she read before I did or after, I forget. But I remember, wow, she is really good. I just remember being struck by the poem, and I was like, I want to talk to her. At least if nothing else, and tell her I really like the poem.
yeah, I remember you sitting at the table and I was just so excited to meet like real New York poets. And I
Mm.
was like, that guy
Real New
seems
York
like
poets in
the New York
Hoboken.
poet I
Yeah.
want to meet.
New York poets in
Still,
Hoboken.
yeah, New York poets in Hoboken. I was moving in with Steve Cannon the next day, and but I was like, I was just watching you like watch me read, and I was like, I hope he likes my poetry. He seems really cool. You seemed like the type of poet I wanted to hang out with, and then we did. We hung out for
So,
years.
and here we are today, right
Here we
now.
are. We've had a lot of whiskey together.
Yeah, you guys party. Oh yeah, you guys party. This is the in
No,
crowd
no,
tonight, everyone.
nothing too bad.
Oh wow, what a story. That's great. That's great. Um, oh man, so the reading was clothed, right? There were clothes at this
Reading with
reading?
clothes,
There was
yeah.
clothes. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, great, great. All right, cool. So this question, we only have two questions left. And maybe we'll end with a poem, one more poem from each of you. So after these two questions, unless if no one else has anything in the chat. And Tamara or Gabe, if you could also put the links to the books for Jersey Slide and Chavisa's in the chat, that'd be great. So this one's from our executive director, Chavisa and Danny. Your poems don't shy away or even flinch from the gritty, challenging parts of life. I was going to ask about why you choose those things to focus on in your writing and what it gives to your readers. But Chavisa pretty much just answered that, so thank you. Oh, okay. So we only have one question left. Thank you, Gabe, for for answering that as you were going. Okay, last question. So this was another one for me too, and I was telling you all that I was writing a book. So at this point, both of you wrote several books, and I know each book project is different. But do you have a general idea on how you decide to put a book together, or when you know that you're working with something that is actually going to be a book?
I can answer that. I have
Mm.
no idea. Usually it's like a bunch of poems or stories.
Mhm.
I, in terms of this book with CavanKerry, I sent them out. I said, here they are. And Baron Wormser looked at them, put them into sections, said these ones work, these ones don't. Gabe looked at certain ones, said these ones work, these ones don't. But I'm a writer who needs an editor. And I'm
Mm.
really thankful for an editor, for both Baron Wormser in this case and Gabe helping out. But also in my book of stories, I had a book of stories come out earlier this year from
Mhm.
Roadside Press called Nightbird Flying. So many of my friends who are writers are so sure of themselves in terms of what they have, what they want, and I know because I've worked with them and talked to them for
Mhm.
years. I'm not as sure,
Mm.
and I'm really thankful. Someone who helped me with this book a lot was my friend Eva HD.
Mm.
After I sent it to Kevin Carey and it wasn't really ready, Gabe said, no, it's not ready. She helped me reformulate the poems and the
Mm.
order, and Baron worked with me also to make it publication ready. So,
Mm.
yeah, I don't know.
Okay, that's a good answer. Thank you, Chavisa.
Yeah, to answer the last question, the answer is no, I don't know. And to answer the
Mhm.
question before that, I actually wanted to say something to that.
Okay.
To like, why do you write about the grittiest things? I'm actually going to quote John Mulaney at the end of his
Mhm.
recent set that he did about drug addiction.
Uh-huh.
As horrible as some of these things seem, remember, this is just the part that I'm willing to share with you.
Mm.
There are some things I still have not written about and may never write about.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point. That came up in my book of stories also. Yeah.
Mm.
I write about the things that I hope that will be relevant to society to change. I don't just want to write like trauma porn.
Right, right. Because that was going to be my follow up. So it's like, when is it crossing a boundary, right? And I know vulnerability is something and being too close to it, but what you're saying, Chavisa, is like what is the worth of it? Well, not what is the worth of it, and excuse me, let me rephrase that, but what is the purpose it's going to serve if someone else were to read it? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah. I think I want to write like
Mm.
this needs to change in society. Like that's there are some things that feel really personal and private and that were
Mhm.
traumatic, but I don't necessarily just want to write about that. I kind of, I hope that America can still be capable of some shame.
Mm,
Like Gandhi said, can we shame this country into changing? Like, can we expose the wrongs that it's done? That's kind of what I would like to do.
got
I'm
it.
trying to stay away from just writing trauma porn, although there is sometimes it's like I don't know,
Yeah,
as a writer, you don't know. It's hard. It's a
yeah,
line they walk.
right,
Like
right.
what's
And I just want to say this, Chavisa has a wide breadth of
Yeah, of
subjects she
disciplines.
covers
Hmm.
yeah.
in her writing.
I just read 3 poems today, but like
Yeah.
on the same subject. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And Danny, for you, like, is there a certain line of some things that you write and don't write because of a purpose it serves, or it feels too close? Like, where do you fall on that spectrum?
Not really. I write a lot, and then the editors tell me this is not appropriate.
Oh, okay, that works. Oh my gosh.
You're
Okay,
really
yeah, that works.
funny.
Yeah,
It's true.
yeah. Oh goodness. Okay, so thank you everyone for being here. What we're gonna do, we're actually gonna close out. Chavisa, do you have another poem that you'd be willing to read?
I'll read a really short poem if people have. I don't want to I always want to leave people wanting more rather than hoping for
Okay. I
less,
mean,
but
well, you
I
know,
could read a short one.
3.5 or 4 is good, you know?
Okay, because I read 3. I will read
Mhm.
one more. Do, 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 do. Let's see. Oh yeah, I'll just read one more on the same subject. This is called Immeasurable Distance,
Mhm.
and this was a found poem. I was on the phone with my mom, and she was talking, and this many, many years ago. I think I was probably 21 or 22. I just moved to New York, and this is an exact quote from my mother.
Cool.
Immeasurable distance. Your brother and me go walking every night down that trail out by the field. The other night, we found 2 decanters of whiskey in the ditch there alongside the trail. We just sat down by the ditch and drank it till the sun left, and then some. We got drunk as a couple of skunks. Your brother hadn't been the same since his friend broke his arm and died from it. He was only 19, you know. Now, every morning, that Indian figure on the shelf turns itself toward the hallway. I swear. And that's not all. Every night, that watch on the table that belonged to him, it beeps at 8:58 p.m. and 12 noon sharp. It's been doing that for 2 years now. Sissy, I got a strange feeling about the ocean in New York City. If I were you, I'd come back here or make damn sure you know a quick way to get to higher ground. Do you feel like you got good people you can rely on out there, just in case something were to happen?
Mm. Thank you,
You do have
Chavisa, for
good
sharing
people
that.
you can rely
If something were to happen.
Thank you.
on. And I'll read a short one. Um, it's called Found Poem because it is a found poem, and it comes from NJ.com, April 18th, 2024. This really isn't mine, but I found it. Dear Miss Manners, an acquaintance of mine has taken to writing poetry. It's awful, full of unnecessarily obscure words, commonplace observations presented as profundity, tedious self ruminations, etc., etc. I've heard enough to last me a lifetime, but whenever I encounter this individual, they announce excitedly that they've written a new poem and ask me if I'd like to hear it. Before I can respond, they pull out their smartphone and begin reciting. This individual lives in my apartment building. Short of moving, what should I do? And here's the answer. Dear gentle reader, must you rule out moving? It strikes Miss Manners as a reasonable response to living in fear of surprise attacks of amateur poetry.
Oh my goodness. I feel so seen. I feel like you wrote that for me.
NJ.com. I didn't write it. Someone.
Uh, but the fact that you just like told me, you know, I writing this book, I am that poet. I
We
am.
are,
Oh my
we are
gosh.
all that poet at
Thank
times.
you. Thank you for affirming me. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Chavisa. Thank you so much, Danny. Thank you so much, everyone who has tuned in here on Zoom and on Facebook, and whoever's watching later on YouTube after this recording is up. At this point in time, Gabe, if you could unmute everyone, I'll take us off Spotlight in order for us to all say goodnight. Give everyone a round of applause. If you're in an apartment building, make sure they could hear you in the apartment below. Make sure your neighbors could hear you in your condominium. Thank you.
Hey, Teresa, John.